Assalamu alaikum. Anothony Rogers posted a silly video with a filthy title, which I'm not going to pronounce it. In this video, he presents to us a very silly and cheap argument, which is less than 2 cents in the market of arguments after the discount.
If I leave my grin behind, remind me. We're all mad here. And by we, I mean Muslims, whose God is like a cosmic Cheshire cat.
As you can see, he starts his video by being a troll and saying unfunny and incoherent jokes, which doesn't make any sense. And he wants Muslims to take him seriously? Really? And if you are wondering why he is trolling, it is because he have no real arguments against Islam. He knows very well that Islam is hundreds of times more rational than Christianity. So he is forced to act as a troll, to give his Christian audience the impression that Christianity makes more sense. Okay. Go on.
The Bible teaches that God is an infinite, eternal, and unchangeable spirit, who does not have a body or bodily appendages.
So he starts the video by trolling and then lying. Why I said he is lying? Simply because that's totally the opposite of what the Bible clearly teaches. He is saying that the Bible doesn't teach that God have a body or body parts. This is totally the opposite of what the Bible teaches. He is either lying or have no clue whatsoever on what his holy book says. In Exodus 24 verses 9 to verse 11 it says, the prophet Moses and Aaron saw God. In verse 10 it says, under his feet was something. So here it says that God have a feet. And in verse 11 it says, but God didn't raise his hand. In Exodus 33 verse 20 it says, but he said, you can see my face, for no man shall see me and live. So here the Bible is saying that God have a hand and feet, while Anothony Rogers is saying the complete opposite. So who is lying here, the Bible or Anothony Rogers? We will leave the answer for Anothony Rogers. In Nahum 1 verse 3, and clouds are under the dust of his feet. Again, his feet. Who is lying here, Bible or Anothony Rogers? Again, we will leave the answer for him. In 2 Samuel 22 verse 9 to verse 11, smoke rose from his nostrils. His nostrils? Smoke rose from his nostrils? The Bible says that God have nostrils and smoke coming out of his nostrils? Really? Is this an appropriate way to describe God? Smoke out of his nostrils? In case if you don't know what is nostrils, this is nostrils. He parted the heavens and came down. Dark clouds were under his feet. Again his feet. He mounted the cherubim and flew. So the author in this part is saying that God is flying on a winged creature called cherubim. And by the way, this is for Christians who are making fun of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for flying on the Buraq. They are making fun of Prophet Muhammad, who was a human, for flying on the Buraq, while their own book says that their God flies on a cherubim. A bit of inconsistency, right? In Exodus 33 from verse 20 to verse 23, but he said, you can't see my face, for no one may see me and live. I will put you in a cleft in the rock with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and you will see my back. So here it says, I will remove my hand and you will see my back. But my face must not be seen. So now according to Bible, God have hands, feet, back, nostrils and face beside flying on a cherubim. On the other hand, Anothony Rogers is saying the complete opposite. So who is lying here? We need clarification for that.
This is why when the Old Testament speaks of God appearing to people like Abraham in Genesis 18 or Moses in Exodus 24, Christians understand it as an act of divine condescension.
This is your own interpretation. Nowhere is that written in Bible. You just made up this interpretation to avoid the counter-arguments of Muslims. You said that Christians understand it as an act of divine condescension. Well, the Christian understanding is messed up. Christians understood from the Bible that Prophet Jesus is God, while the Bible never said that. Also Christians understood from the Bible that God is a Trinity, while the Bible also never said that. So why we should take this condescension understanding seriously?
This is also why the Lord Jesus Christ had to become incarnate or assume in human nature in order that he might suffer, die, and rise again for his people.
Second lie. The doctrine of incarnation of God in human form doesn't exist anywhere in Bible. And I challenge you to show me where the Bible referred to this doctrine. This doctrine was copied from Hinduism and ancient civilizations. Almost all ancient civilizations believed in the incarnation of their gods in human form. Besides, Hindus also believe that God incarnated in more than 300 million humans. and the doctrine of Trinity was made up after the Council of Constantinople in the 4th century. Prophet Jesus didn't even teach it. Prophet Jesus himself clearly stated that he is not God. In Mark 10 verse 18, why do you call me good? Jesus answered, no one is good except God alone. In this verse, Prophet Jesus clearly distinguishes between himself and God. In John 6 verse 38, for I came down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me. So here Prophet Jesus is saying that God sent him. Let's continue. In John 13 verse 16, very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. In Luke 6 verse 12, one of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray, and spent the night praying to whom? Praying to God, not praying to himself. So here is Prophet Jesus praying to God. So if Prophet Jesus is God, as you said, then is he praying to himself? Are you serious? And there are tons of verses in which Prophet Jesus clearly denies being God, and these verses would take hours to present.
As God, the second person of the Trinity, Jesus is a spirit, and as such didn't have a body in which he could suffer and die.
Wait here. Are you saying that your God died? Died? Really? The creator of this huge universe died? The creator of this massive universe with billions of stars and galaxies was crucified by his own creation? Are you joking? Do you really believe what you are saying? You want to troll Muslims, but in fact you are trolling your own self by saying this.
Muhammad, the false prophet,
Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is 100% prophet from God, with an overwhelming evidence for his prophethood. Watch my video, Prophecies of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, overwhelming evidence for prophethood.
Taught that his God did have a body.
Okay, it is true that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have face and hands, because he himself said this, and we can't disagree. But did Allah describe how his hands or face looks like? The answer is no. Unlike the Bible, which says that God have smoke coming out of his nostrils, neither the Quran nor the Sunnah describe the face or the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something which totally belongs to the knowledge of the unseen, something which you can't even imagine. The main principle in Islam is that nothing is similar to Allah. Nothing. In Quran Surah 42 verse 11, there is nothing like unto him. Nothing. In Quran Surah 112, he neither begets nor is born, nor is there to him any equivalent. Case closed.
Everything will perish, except, of course, for Allah. However, these verses actually go on to state what the exception is to this general statement. And call not besides Allah on another God. There is no God but He. Everything that exists will perish, except His own face. To Him belongs the command, and to Him will you all be brought back. All that is on earth will perish, but will abide forever the face of your Lord, full of majesty, bounty, and honor. If everything will perish with the exception of Allah's face, then it means His body, His hands, His fingers, His legs, His feet, and everything else will perish, leaving behind only Allah's face.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that everything will perish except his face. And Anothony Rogers understood that this means that his hand and legs will perish too. The answer to this rubbish claim is so easy and simple. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that his face will remain, it means that he himself will remain. Arabs used in their language the face as figure of speech to represent one's self. And the Quran was revealed in the language of Arabs. In Quran 39 verse 28, an Arabic Quran. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the Quran as being Arabic. In Quran Surah 19 verse 97, so we have made it easy in your tongue. Your tongue here means the language of Prophet Muhammad. And what was the language of Prophet Muhammad? It was Arabic. And why Quran was revealed in Arabic? Because Allah sent every messenger with the language of his people. Quran Surah 14 verse 4, and we did not send any messenger except in the language of his people, to state clearly for them. So in the language of Arabs, they used many metaphors and figures of speech. They used the face as a metaphoric figure of speech to refer to the self. You might ask, where is the evidence that this is a metaphor? The evidence is in Quran itself. In Quran Surah 2 verse 112, whoever submits his face to Allah while being a doer of good will have his reward with his Lord. So here clearly the face is being used as a metaphor to refer to the one who is submitting himself to Allah. It is clearly a metaphoric figure of speech. Also in Quran, Surah 4, verse 1 to 4. And who has a fairer religion than he who surrenders his face to Allah? Again, the face here is clearly a metaphor. In Quran, Surah 31, verse 22. And whoever submits his face to Allah. Again, the face here is clearly a metaphor. Another verse in Quran, Surah 3, verse 20. So in case they argue with you, then say, I have surrendered my face to Allah. Again, the face here is obviously a metaphor, which means the self. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself mentioned that there are metaphoric verses in Quran, and that there are some who use the metaphoric verses for the aim of causing troubles. Beside, all the well-known Muslim scholars through ages interpreted his face as Allah himself will remain. Scholars like Ibn Kathir, At-Tabari, Al-Qurtubi. So here is the question for Anothony Rogers. Do you really want us to read the Bible literally as you did with Quran? If we read the Bible literally as you have read Quran, it will be a disaster. Why it would be a disaster? Let me give an example. The biblical author of Revelation portrays God as a lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes. Revelation 5 verse 6 it says, Then I saw a lamb looking as if it had been slain, standing at the center of the throne. Okay, you have seen a lamb. Let us see how this lamb looked like. The lamb had 7 horns and 7 eyes. 7 horns and 7 eyes? This is freaky. Anothony Rogers, do you want us to read this verse literally? And I'm just curious. I want to know more about this lamb. Let's read Revelation 5:13. It says what? Then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and on the sea, saying to him who sits on the throne and to the lamb, be praise and honor and glory and power forever and ever. The 4 living creatures said Amen. Said Amen. Amen to who? To the lamb? To the animal? Okay. In Revelation 17 verse 14 it says what? They will wage war against the lamb, but the lamb will triumph over them. Why? Because he is the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings. The lamb here is the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings. Remember that Anothony Rogers said that the Bible doesn't teach that God has a body, while the author of Revelation portrays God as a lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes. Is this even appropriate to portray God in that way? To portray God as a lamb, animal, even if it is a metaphor, it's not appropriate. So Anothony Rogers, do you still want us to read the Bible literally as you did with Quran? If your answer is yes, then take another verse. Psalms 44 verse 23. Wake up, O Lord. Why do you sleep? Get up. Don't reject us forever. Wake up, O Lord. Why do you sleep? Question for Anothony Rogers. Is this literal or metaphoric? If you said it's literal, then this means that God sleeps according to Bible. If you said it is a metaphor, then at least be consistent when it comes to Quran and don't have double standards. So my advice for Anothony Rogers, calm down, Calm down. Because if you keep trolling us Muslims, we have tons of verses to troll you back with from your Bible.